we celebrated when Biden dropped out. We were like, yes, finally we have some new blood. And then we saw Tim Walz and how cool he would be. You know, how what's his record been like? It's good stuff. The record's good. I'm excited about Tim Walz. I am moderately less excited about Kamala, but, you know, that's because she is implicated in a lot of Biden's stuff that he's done that I don't like. Anyway, Biden has dropped out. Thank the gods. And he has given his first interview since dropping out. And I was curious, you know, how has he changed since now he doesn't have to be concerned that his words or his actions will have an impact on the election. He's got nothing to do with it at this point. Cool? Cool. So I wanted to watch this interview with you all and do a little React Andy segment. It's about 12 minutes long, so it'll take us, you know, not super long to get through it, hopefully. And yeah, I just want to see kind of what his plan is going forward. What are we going to do with these next 5 months? What's the plan, Stan? What are we doing, Jack? All right. So let's take a look at this.
We're living through history.
We really are.
Let's begin with your decision. You're at your home, Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, late July with your family, and you make this historic decision. Tell me the story.
Look, the polls we had showed that it was a neck-and-neck race. Would have been down to the wire. But what happened was a number of my Democratic colleagues in the House and Senate thought that I was going to hurt them in the races.
He's blaming him dropping out on the other Democrats in the party. That's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Yeah.
And I was concerned if I stayed in the race, that would be the topic. You'd be interviewing me about why did Nancy Pelosi say, why did so, and I thought it'd be a real distraction, number one. Number two, when I ran the first time, I thought of myself as being a transition president.
Yep.
I can't even say how.
It's one of the things we were harping on before is like, hey, you said you were going to be a transition person and not go for 2 terms. What's the deal here?
Old I am. It's hard for me to get out of my mouth. And, but things got moving so quickly, it didn't happen. And the combination was that I thought it was a critical issue for me, still is not a joke, maintaining this democracy. But I thought it was important because although it's a great honor being president, I think I have an obligation to the country to do the most important thing to do, and that is we must defeat Trump.
I saw those images of your family.
Okay, so yeah, he acknowledged that he's old and that he saw that in the polls it was neck and neck with Trump, and he was like, in order to preserve this democracy, we need to make sure that the Democrats win. So he's like, I'm just gonna bow out. And like, that was a good decision. If that is his true motivation, that's a great way to go about it, I guess, is like, yeah, I think that I might lose or I might win, but Kamala has a much better chance of just straight up winning, and we cannot let Trump have a second term because he will dismantle this democracy. Yeah, makes perfect sense to me. Yeah, I decided after everyone hated me that I would in fact stick to what I said. Aren't I great? Yeah.
In the Oval Office, sitting just over to your left, as you addressed the nation, they came up to you after the speech. What did you say to them?
That's what they said to me. They said, my grandchildren call me Pop, my children call me Dad, and they said they were proud, and it mattered to me a lot.
When I saw you with your family in the Oval, I wondered, is he thinking of Bo, too?
Look,
I don't think he was expecting the question about his dead kid. It was kind of a low blow, feels like.
I can honestly say that I think of him all the time. Whenever I have a decision, it's really hard to make. I literally ask myself, what will Bo do? He should be sitting here being interviewed, not me. He was really a fine man. You know, Bo was committed to my staying committed We had a conversation toward the end when we knew he wasn't going to live. And he said, Dad, we know it's going to happen. He said, I'm going to be okay, Dad. I'm all right, I'm not afraid. But Dad, you got to make me a promise. I said, what's that, Bo? He said, I know when it happens, you're going to want to quit. You're not going to stay engaged. He went to my dad, he said, look at me. Look at me, Dad. Give me your word as a Biden. When I go, you'll stay engaged. Give me your word. Give me your word. And I did. And then that's why I had not planned on running after he died. And then Charlottesville happened.
We're going to move into Charlottesville now. Mama says all this is after the fact. He's saying what he has to preserve his ego, but we all know what happened. He was forced out. He was fully prepared to lose the election to Trump for the sake of his own ego. Right. I mean, he did say that part of it was the optics of, all these Democrats were calling for him to drop, and that made him look bad. Like if he didn't have the support of other Democrats in the party, it just wasn't going to work out, really. Weirdly enough, waiting to drop out kind of helped. I feel like if it had been from day one, Trump's campaign wouldn't be scrambling like it is right now and would not have spent $80 million on anti-Biden ads. Yeah, in that way, like the fact that they're scrambling now to figure out what to do, they don't have a strong rhetoric against Kamala or Walz. Everything they keep saying about them makes them look cooler. Yeah. And yeah, they drained so much money on the anti-Biden campaign. How many Let's Go Brandon t-shirts are just sitting in a warehouse somewhere and nobody's going to buy them now? Hi, I'm Alexander and this is Mitternacht. You should hit the like button and subscribe and check out the Patreon. And ooh, look at this hoodie I'm wearing. It's merch. Check it out. Links in the description. Thank you. All right. Something Charlottesville?
In 2017, white supremacist demonstrations in Charlottesville, Virginia turned deadly when, on August 12th, Heather Heyer, a civil rights activist, was murdered in what the Justice Department called a hate-inspired act of domestic terrorism. Biden has long traced his decision to run in 2020 to that moment.
It really is the beginning of your journey to the presidency. As you look at American democracy 7 years later, how do you see it?
When I spoke to the mom who lost her daughter as a consequence of those neo-Nazis and white supremacists come out of fields in America with torches.
I have two comments to make. One, it's notable that he's just coming right out and being like, these are white supremacist neo-Nazis. I don't think he would say that if he was still running for re-election, but also he seems like he's kind of short of breath. Almost like COVID damages your heart and your lungs. Weird.
Carrying Nazi banners, singing the same sick anti-Semitic bile that was sung in Germany in the 30s. And when her daughter was killed, the press went to the then President Trump and said, what do you think? He said, they're very fine people on both sides. And I knew then, I had to do something. And that's when I decided to run, because democracy was literally at stake. And and then he evidenced everything that we thought. January 6th, when attack on the Capitol, he talked about now, because he now talks about making sure they're all let out of prison. They're going to pardon them. Think of this. Every other time the Ku Klux Klan's been involved, they wore hoods so they're not identified. Under his presidency, they came out of those woods with no hoods, knowing they had an ally. That's how I read it. They knew they had an ally in the White House. And he stepped up for them.
Are you confident that there will be a peaceful transfer of power in January 2025?
If Trump wins, no, I'm not confident at all. I mean, if Trump loses, I'm not confident at all. He means what he says. We don't take him seriously. He means it. All the stuff about if we lose, there'll be a bloodbath. Have to be a stolen election. Look what they're trying to do now in the local election districts where people count the votes. They're putting people in place in states that they're going to count the votes, right? You can't love your country only when you win.
Trump has said his...
That is interesting. So I'm personally of the opinion that, so I don't, when I say like peaceful transfer of power, I guess in this instance, I think if Trump wins, they're going to enact a bunch of policies and probably increase violence against the populace. So either way, I think, and also it's going to embolden stochastic terrorists, like stochastic terrorism and stuff. So I think that the citizen militia type things like the Patriot Front and all that, they will be emboldened if Trump wins. And I think if Kamala wins, then we're going to have January 6th to Electric Boogaloo. Like, I'm personally of the opinion that either way, we're going to see civil unrest. But yes, I do think Biden is making a good point there, and I think he's correct that if Trump loses, yeah, Jan 6 to Electric Boogaloo. I feel like Biden would hook himself up to machines and go full Darth Vader before allowing himself to not finish his term. That's fair. Yeah, like, is there anything in the world that would get him to step aside actually and have Kamala bring it up now? I don't think so. If Trump were to win, it would be the first time, as far as I know, that a president was reelected after previously losing. Yeah, I think that typically if you lose as a former president, you don't run again. Like, it just seems like you wouldn't do that. But anyway.
Remarks on Charlottesville were not intended to praise white nationalists, and that he was warning of economic carnage when he said bloodbath. But Trump isn't the only thing on Biden's mind.
You have about 5 months left in your presidency. You're managing 2 wars, domestic policy, the economy. On foreign policy, Israel's war with Hamas. Is a ceasefire possible before the end of your term?
Still possible. The plan I put
I don't think that he caught the before the end of your term part of that question.
together, endorsed by the G7, endorsed by the UN Security Council, et cetera, is still viable. And I'm working literally every single day to, and my whole team, to see to it that it doesn't escalate into a regional war. But it easily can.
You've had a lot of ambition. Some senators told me in March of 2021, you took them into the Oval Office and pointed up at FDR's portrait and said, we're going big. We're going in that direction.
I did.
Yeah, well, you have far short of that expectation. Herbert Hoover did it. Oh, okay, cool.
And we have, with the great help of so many people. Look, democracy works. And it was very important to prove that it worked. Prove that it worked. I mean, look at what we've been able to do. We've created 16 million jobs. I mean, real new jobs.
Yeah, the heavy breathing is hard not to notice.
We've gotten around the brink of having the private sector invest over $1 trillion. $1 trillion in the American economy. One of the things I fought for as a senator a long time was to change the dynamic of how we grow the economy. Not from the top down, but from the bottom up. The idea of trickle-down economics.
Oh yeah, what happened to those stimmies, sir? Excuse me, Mr. Grow the Economy from the bottom up. Excuse me, where did the stimmies go? Sorry? Oh, and also, do you remember how you pretended, like, because of the Senate parliamentarian, that you couldn't even have a conversation about raising the federal minimum wage? How about increasing the billionaires' taxes to 90% like it was in the 50s when America was great? You know what I mean? There's no way we could get FDR-style policies through with Citizens United still in effect. Oh, Kitty, how dare you? It was Grover Cleveland, not Hoover. Silly bean. He's so quiet that they turned up his mic, which is why we can hear every breath and lip smack. Yeah. He's like, listen, sometimes when I get kind of heated during this show, I feel a little short of breath, but I'm also not like pretending, you know, I think I've had COVID like 3 times. I have never tested. Like I've always managed to just not test while I was actively sick. So like, but yeah, like I think I've had COVID 3 times, and yeah, sometimes I feel a little short of breath, but I'm also not 80 years old and running the country. So, but you can so hear it. He's like, it's coming so fast, coming so hard. Anyway.
It doesn't work in my view.
You're proud of this record. Will we see you out on the campaign trail for Vice President Harris?
Yes, you will. I talk to her frequently, and by the way, I've known her running mate is a great guy. As we say, if we grew up in the same neighborhood, we'd have been friends. He's my kind of guy. He's real, he's smart. I've known him for several decades. I think it's a hell of a team.
To those who have expressed skepticism about how much you'll be on the trail or about the rest of your term, raise questions about your health, what do you say to them?
All I can say is watch, that's all. Look, I had a really, really bad day in that debate because I was sick. But I have no serious problem. I was talking to Governor Shapiro, who's a friend. We have to win Pennsylvania.
Wait, isn't Governor Shapiro, is that Joshua Shapiro? Is that the one that we talked about the fact that he is all, oh, the Palestinians, like, are incapable of wanting peace or something like that? Like, he's one of the ones we don't like, right? I don't know. There's more than one man with the name Shapiro, of course. But for Trump to be like, yeah, he's my friend. Or sorry, for Biden to be like, he's my friend. That seems, if he's talking about the person I think he's talking about, that's not great.
Pennsylvania, my original home state. He and I are putting together a campaign tour in Pennsylvania. I'm going to be campaigning in other states as well. And I'm going to do whatever Kamala thinks I can do to help most.
We had this conversation in the president's private residence, here in the White House Treaty Room.
Yeah, Joshua Shapiro was almost the VP pick for Kamala and called student protesters KKK. Okay, cool. Yeah, good. Yep.
Where historic peace agreements have been signed. Watching over us, Ulysses S. Grant, the general turned president who labored to restore the Union after the Civil War.
When you think about the presidency, we're here in a special room in the residence, so much history in this room. How do you want history to remember President Biden?
That he proved democracy can work. It got us out of a pandemic.
Oh, you mean the one, oh, hold on. You got us out of the pandemic? Really? You mean this pandemic? This map shows current viral activity levels of SARS and COVID water. The darker it is, the more high it is. You mean this one? This pandemic? Is that the one you mean? That you ended? Look at that. See, there's the key. Sir? Is this the one you mean? Anyway. Goodness gracious. Okay. Let's finish up this interview.
It produced the single greatest economic recovery in American history. We're the most powerful economy in the world.
Yeah, asterisk. Got the CDC to say we're out of a pandemic, yeah.
We have more to do. And it demonstrated that we can pull the nation together. Look, I've always believed, and I still do, the American people are good and decent. They're honorable people. When I announced my candidacy to run way back for president, I said we got to do three things: restore the soul of America, build the economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, and bring the country together. No one thought we could get done, and including not my own people, what we got done. But one of the problems is I knew all the things we did were going to take a little time to work their way through. So now people are realizing, oh, that highway, oh, that the biggest mistake we made, we didn't put up signs saying Joe did it. Folks, the people of this nation have spoken.
4 years
4 years ago, he had so much more vigor.
ago, what Joe did was defeat Donald Trump. Now, with Trump attempting to return to the White House, Biden is sounding the alarm, in a way sitting presidents rarely, if ever, do.
The stakes are that high to you.
I give you my word, I think they're that high. Mark my words. If he wins this this election, watch what happens. It's a danger. He's a genuine danger to American security. Look, we're at an inflection point in world history. We really are. The decisions we make in the last 3-4 years and the next 3 or 4 years are going to determine what the next 6 decades look like. And
I mean, that's true because global climate change is going to cause mass food and water shortages. So if we don't basically remove fossil fuels in the next 3 to 4 years, yeah, it's definitely going to make an impact on what the next 60 years are going to look like.
democracy is the key. And that's why I went down and made that speech at Johnson Center about the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is so out of whack. So out of whack.
Oh, are we going to talk about the Supreme
And
Court?
so I
Are you gonna do
propose that
something?
we limit terms to 18 years.
Okay.
So anyway, there's little regard by the MAGA Republicans for the political institutions.
The mega Republicans.
That's what holds this country together. That's what democracy is about. That's who we are as a nation.
Mr. President, thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be with you.
An honor to be in this room.
Yeah, it seems like he could do Supreme Court reforms anytime, like any day now. Any day. Thank you, Oxpecker. I'll check that out later on.
You might have noticed that.
Okay. Yeah. Like, are we going to see any reforms, like, in the Supreme Court? I don't know if there's anything that he can do at this point. He could, you know, the people have suggested that he expand the court, but I don't think he's going to get any appointees in the next 5 months, right? If Mitch McConnell stalled out Obama's choice for like more than 2 years, I don't have any idea that I don't think we're going to be able to appoint anyone. Super whispering at the end. Apparently whispering is terrible for your voice too. Yeah, you can't reform the Supreme Court solely through the executive branch. This dude looks AI generated. I'd love to see term limits if we can, but 5 months, right? Yeah, like is that anywhere close to enough time to make any significant reforms? Like, which of the Supreme Court justices would be impacted by an 18-year term limit? Roberts was appointed in 2005. Okay, what year would it have to be 18 years ago? It would have to be 2026? Sorry, 2006. Sorry, 2006 would have been 18 years ago. So, Clarence Thomas would be impacted by that because he took his seat in 91. Alito, well, actually, hold on. Yeah, no, so Roberts would be impacted by that. Yeah, because that was 19 years ago when he took office. So Roberts would be out. Thomas would be out. Alito would be pretty close to being out because he took his seat January 2006. So he would be like right on the cutoff for that. Sotomayor would still be in. Kagan would still be in. Gorsuch would still be in because he's really new. Kavanaugh would still be in. Coney Barrett would still be in. And Ketanji Brown would still be in. So that would be 3. And they're all 3 conservatives, right? Justice Roberts, Justice Thomas, and Justice Alito, they're all conservative justices. So if there were an 18-year term limit, those 3 would just be out immediately. If the Democrats got their nut up and forced through candidates the way the Republicans did with Amy Coney Barrett, we could be good. But inaction by Democrats is destroying this country almost as much as the Republicans are. Yeah, that is frustrating, for sure. Anything that requires anything more than a simple majority is dead on arrival in Congress if it is remotely good for Dems or politically aggressive, no matter how much of a no-brainer policy it is. Yeah, there was some recent thing, and I can't remember what it was, but something recent didn't pass just because the Republicans didn't want to give Dems a win this close to the election. I wish I could remember what it was. I'm sorry. There's a million things for me to keep track of. Can the term limits be imposed by executive order? I don't know. I doubt it, but I'm not sure. If it could be done, then it should have been done like yesterday. It was a border bill. Oh my God, something that normally the Republicans are all over. Like, yes, stronger border, kill more immigrants. But yeah, I guess kind of nice to see Biden talking straight in a way that we haven't really seen from him, you know, because he doesn't care about reelection now. It gives him a little bit of freedom to talk about stuff. No matter what is going to happen, like no matter who wins the election, I'm still moving out of Kansas. You know, people have asked me that. Like, they've asked me, what are they going to do? Like, or what am I going to do with regards to, you know, plans to live somewhere more progressive or whatever. And it's like, yeah, cool. We currently have a Democratic president, and I have lost several rights in my state during this presidency. So even if Kamala wins, I am still going to move to the Pacific Northwest. And I'm running a fundraiser to help that happen because, oh my God, it's going to be so much more complicated than I originally thought it was going to be. So yeah, just like having a Harris Walz win doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to immediately get better for people in red states. I still prefer to live somewhere where like I can more easily rely on like being safe locally. Yeah, it does kind of feel that way, Mama. If anything, red states will go harder as revenge and to campaign for the 2026 midterms. I am kind of worried about that. Yeah. You know, like that, again, just like I'm concerned about violence afterwards, I think no matter which candidate wins, whether it's Trump or Kamala, I think that we're going to have things go badly. So either Trump is going to embolden red states to pass even more restrictive laws, or red states are going to pass more restrictive laws to kind of rebel against the Harris presidency. The problem for Republicans is there are officially more moderate/left-leaners than conservative right-leaners. And even if we did a redistribution and they all moved to red states and we all moved to blue states, they would never win again. Yeah, I think Viren said earlier that it's interesting that just on the COVID deaths demographics, the Republicans have severely kneecapped themselves, given that so many red supporters have just straight up died. You know? I wonder what the demographics look like just in terms of registered voters now that there's been like between, I mean, literally like 2020 was when this whole pandemic started. So, excuse me, it would be, yeah, like the demographics will have shifted pretty dramatically since then. More moderate Republicans in red states are quietly suffering Trump fatigue. There is a movement of Republicans for Harris that is gaining traction. MAGA does have defectors these days that actually like Harris. Red states are getting sick of radical, quote, Christian nationalists. They're a pain in the ass in local politics, etc. They're sick of book bans, hate bills, etc. Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope that is the case. Thank you so much to all my patrons, but especially Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rovag, Jack, Amanda B., Michelle Frateroli, Michelle Winter, Wellington Marcus, Danielle McDonald, DZXN, Elavi Nobody, Pastel Infinity, Suzanne Maynard, Nova, Desi Quiche, Celeste, Athiette, Jamie Jam, Sojo, Bean, Kevin Young, Mr. Atheist, Liam Hodgson, Elizabeth Bartell, and Jericho.